I literally just almost said, hey y'all, hi, my name is Patrick Ta. Hey y'all, hi, I'm Hannah, and today I am giving you a full-on, straight-up, old-school first impressions of the Patrick Ta for Face Crème Foundation and Finishing Powder Duo. I love the work of Patrick Ta. I love to see him out there slaying, and because of that, I'm really rooting for the brand. It's high-end. I can't afford to review everything that Patrick Ta releases, but I am always following his future career and the future career of the brand with great interest. I also love a balm foundation, and when this was released amidst an absolute barrage of foundations, because it suddenly seemed like every brand was releasing a foundation, at least last time that I filmed new makeup releases hot takes, that's what it seemed like. This is the one that I felt the most excited by and the most like I wanted to review. And all of you in the comments of that video, I mean, not all of you, but a great many of you in the comments in that video said that you wanted to see me review it. And so that is what I'm doing. If this is your first time clicking on one of my videos, then welcome to this, my YouTube channel. It's kind of my ever-evolving current project. I'm very interested right now in the relationship between aesthetics and consumerism and joy. I explore those relationships in my videos, sometimes as a cultural commentator, sometimes from the perspective of an artist, and sometimes just as a straight-up beauty guru, which is to say, reviewing products. That's what I'm doing today, and if you're into it, I hope that you will subscribe. Now, let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. All right, here we are. When preparing for this review, i.e. spending some of my budget for review products on the product, I really did the most. I got two colors because the lightest shade has cool undertones. It's actually billed as having cool undertones, and I could just tell by looking that it did. And the second lightest shade looked much more like something that would be a match for me. It is supposed to have golden undertones, but I couldn't tell by looking if the second lightest shade, which is called Fair 2, was actually all that light, or if it was going to be several shades darker than the lightest shade. So I got them both, and I also got the brush. I really wanted to do it right. Here is a close-up of the packaging. I love the Patrick Ta packaging as a rule. I really like the aesthetic. Clearly, it's quite a fingerprinty situation, but I actually don't mind it. I feel like it's worth it just to have something that's so aesthetic, so completely well-designed. This isn't the first time that Patrick Ta has done this, a cream and a powder in the same compact, and he's come up with this really lovely solution to the problem of the powder getting into the cream, which is to have a little lid on the cream. I find it satisfyingly big as well. The component just feels really good. It's some of my favorite makeup component packaging that I've ever reviewed. Patrick Ta, I mean, at large. I feel like he's really straddling glam and minimalism, and I'm here for that. And I think that that's actually really a smart move in today's market, because I feel like aesthetically the makeup market is kind of divided. There are the people who are still in that old school glam lane, like Jaclyn Hill style makeup. And then there are the makeup minimalists who also tend to be like packaging minimalists, aesthetic minimalists. And of course, there are a lot of people who don't fit into either two of those categories, but I just mean when it comes to like the way that packaging is marketed and sold, it tends to fall into one of those two categories. These were really exciting to open, very promising, and then when I swatched the shades, I saw that what I had feared was indeed true. So the lightest shade, Fair 1, is very much on the pink side, too pink for me for sure. And with the second lightest shade, Fair 2, I'll actually give you a close-up of myself swatching the pans. You can really see how it looks like it feels. It feels really silky to touch, really smooth, melty, very promising, but it's just several shades darker than Fair 1. So the undertone is a little closer to mine, but it's way too dark. And for comparison, here is a balm foundation in a very similar style, the Salt New York Sneaky Balm, in a shade that works really well for me, a very pale neutral olive. This is Patrick Ta Fair 1, Patrick Ta Fair 2, and there is the Salt New York Sneaky Balm in N13. Again, we have Patrick Ta, and Salt, New York. So that's the Sneaky Balm on the bottom closest to my pinky. And the other two shades, the Patrick Ta shades, I mean, they look like color correctors compared to the shade that's actually kind of like a neutral olive. I feel like Patrick Ta Fair 1 looks like a cool pink color corrector, like a lavender actually color corrector for sallowness. And Patrick Ta Fair 2 looks like a peach color corrector for dark circles. I hope you'll be able to see on camera what I'm seeing here in person, just how incredibly pink and how incredibly dark and peach those shades are running. However, I really want to apply a full face of it. I really want to see how it goes on over skin and what the coverage is like and how it sits and how it works with the powder that's included in the compact. So I'm going to do it, and I think I'm going to use the fairest shade because even though I'll look, I think, pinker than I usually like to, like much pinker than my neck, and it won't do as much for my actual redness as things that counteract that redness with green undertones do. I think that if I used Fair 2, I would look decidedly orange. I think Fair 1 is going to be the lesser of two evils. Okay, I'm going to try to do it exactly like I saw in the Instagram ad because it was so compelling. So getting it onto the brush, I have already primed, by the way, with the YSL New Balm. This product, which I've been using a lot to test base products lately because it's a really nice, nourishing, kind of balmy skincare primer, and it leaves me with a pretty neutral base in terms of finish. So not too shiny, not too dewy, not too matte. I feel like it leaves me with a very skin-like prepped face. So I can sort of trust that the product is going to perform in the way that it's ever going to perform on top of that primer. All right, picking up where we left off. So I've gotten it all over the brush. Here we go. Yeah, it just looks like a pink paste. I'm gonna let it go with the color for a while and just focus on, I'm gonna pretend that the color is great. I'm gonna focus on how it feels to apply it. The coverage is pretty decent right out of the gate, actually. It's not maybe as sheer as part of me was expecting it to be. Yeah, not bad in terms of finish. Sorry, my bangs are still sticking up. As I was continuing to try to spread it, perfect it, make it even, I did see the brush kind of leaving those brush strokes through the surface of the product as I was going back over it. So I applied it and then I would sort of go through and like buff to make it more even, and it would leave behind those streaks. I think that with a balm product like this that is just a legit melty balm, it kind of makes sense that it does that. I don't feel like it is a flaw in the performance of this product, but more a nature of the beast, you know, of this kind of product. Other balm products that I really love that aren't hyperpigmented tend to do that. Yeah, sitting back and really taking a look at the finish, I think it looks pretty from a distance. And from a distance, you can really see, not to harp on it, but you can really see the issue with the undertone, right? It looks kind of like that porcelain doll color, that like milky pink, and I'm just not that color. The other thing I'm noticing close up is that the surface of my skin pretty much looks exactly the way that it does without product on it. It's like it hasn't changed the surface of my skin at all. It hasn't done any blurring. Maybe, no, not really. It's incredibly skin-like. My pores look exactly the same, which is, I'm not saying this is a bad thing or necessarily a good thing, although it kind of is a good thing to me, actually. The more skin-like something is, the better. But I'm saying it really as an observation. It has that quality that I really love in some balm foundations and concealers, actually, where it sort of looks like it just dyed my skin a different color. It hasn't put anything really on it that's like a layer that has a different look. It's truly skin-like in a lifelike way. Let me see if I can show you what I mean. But I feel, this is the thing. I noticed a little bit of it gathering in the lines underneath my eyes. Like I'd brought it up too close to my eyes. It's been on my skin for what, 4 or 5 minutes maybe. I went back in with the brush and like buffed underneath there to try to buff out those lines, and it left streaks behind in the product underneath my eye. And I feel like that as I do this sort of stipple and try to smooth it all out, it's like the brush is picking up product. I think that this is probably not going to set in any way, shape, or form without powder. And it kind of makes sense because, it's sold with a powder right in here. So if Patrick Ta was going to make a balm-based product like this and it was going to have that quality, which is, again, it's a whole genre of product, right? And the Salt New York Sneaky Balm is somewhat like that too. And that is a product that I really, really love, a base product that I really love. So if he's going to do it, then this is maybe the best thing he could have done for it, include a powder so that it's right there and you know what you need to do to get it to set. But in case you're wondering, it doesn't seem to have any sort of self-setting property at all. But I don't get as much of that streaky struggle with the Salt New York Sneaky Balm. Maybe something about the oils that it's mixed with. It's like the pigments and oils are more melty together and more melty on the skin than this. Or maybe it's because the color match isn't good. So when my brush creates a streak in it, you can really see my skin through it. That could be contributing to it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and finish my face so that I can add powder and see what that does. Okay, stopping there, I haven't put as much on this side as I went in with initially on this side. And I'm stopping to say that I think that less is more with this product. I got this sensation when I was putting on a little bit thinner of a layer and just buffing it into my skin on this side. I got this sensation of like an elegant product that is sort of just a skin tint that melts into the skin, that's not really supposed to be providing all that much coverage, that someone who doesn't wear very much makeup or has a very minimal routine every day is using just to make the skin a little bit dewier and a little bit more even, but that it's not really serious makeup in that way of makeup, I was kind of vibing with that as I was going in with a little bit of a thinner layer on this side. And that is how I use the Salt New York Sneaky Balm. And if this came in a color that was a better match with my skin, I could see myself getting really into using it that way. I think that on this side, I just used a little bit too much out of the gate. I was really trying to put it on as like a foundation and it feels like it didn't go as well. But I'm going to put just a little more on this side to kind of get the coverage to match the other side. And now let's do some powdering with the brush. The powder, I must say, is very, very pale. I mean, it looks like a true colorless, actually translucent powder, the one in the Fair One Compact. Okay, interesting. Up close, I just put the powder on this side. I feel like you must be able to tell, right? Especially here. Up close, I just don't really like how it looks. But the thing is, I don't like the way that powder looks over any balm foundation. I almost never use any kind of powder on the Sneaky Balm, maybe just a little bit around here, but I don't like powdering sort of all of the planes of my face on top of balm because balms have oils in them. They're melty. I just feel like putting a powder on top of something so melty, something that's sort of always melting into the skin all day. To me, it's a recipe for that like micro breaking up of powder, or this sort of on a micro level, like a balling up on the surface of the skin. In my experience, it just never makes pores look good. It doesn't give you that seamless, diffused pore look that a beautiful powder on top of a slightly more heavy-duty foundation or concealer, something that's more designed to set a little bit on the skin, can give. However, from a bit of a distance, it's doing what a powder is supposed to do. And I think that my skin looks a little bit more poreless and perfected on the side that I've powdered than it does on the other side. But close up, I just don't like it. Once again, it's like the product is it's melting and gathering in my crow's feet and fine lines under my eyes. And then when I go to try to buff out those little bits gathering, it's like my fingers picking up the product. I'm gonna zoom in and show you the like powder underneath my eye on this side and hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. I'm gonna powder the other side just to bring it up to speed with the other side, just to make them match. It's like I'm tapping the powder down gently and I feel afraid to sweep the powder on because I feel like, given my experience with the other brush, sweeping over the skin is going to leave streaks because that's what the other brush was doing. I feel like once I get a little layer of powder down, I can do it, but it just doesn't feel natural. I really feel too like my neck doesn't match my face right now, and I brought the Kevyn Aucoin Neo Highlighter, which has kind of a peachy, finely milled powder that I often use to make my neck match my face better when that redness is showing through. But I think that in this case, because my face has that like white pinkness, it's like the foundation is as pale as my skin. It's just the wrong shade. shade. I actually feel like this isn't going to help, and then I might need to bring some of this onto my face a little bit. Yeah, all it's done is make my neck look darker and make my face stand out more. Okay, I've done what I can do. I still feel a little bit like just need a powdered wig to finish the look, but I feel like I've done what I needed to do to get it to a place where I can like wear it, put on my eye makeup. So I'm gonna do that now. I'll be right back with the rest of my makeup on, a couple more hours of data on this product to share with you, and my final thoughts. All right, I'm back. I'm back to let you have it. Here's what I've done since we last spoke. I have applied this whole eye look and filmed it. This is duping the vibes of the Natasha Denona My Dream eyeshadow palette, and I think that video will have already gone up. So I'll link it. I'll put it in the cards. So if you haven't seen it and suddenly you feel like that's a lot more interesting than the Patrick Ta foundation, you can click away and watch it. I'm very pleased with how the eye look came out, and I do feel, no, I don't. I was gonna say I feel like having completed the makeup maybe distracts from the fact that my face is a totally different color from the rest of my body, but it doesn't. If anything, it kind of makes it worse because of the contrast between my eyes and my skin. I mean, the skin on my face. I started a sentence and didn't finish it. Now there's a fly buzzing around my ear. So symbolic. So here's what I've done since we last spoke. I did the whole eye look. It took quite a while because I wasn't just doing it. I was like narrating, talking about duping the vibes, talking about Natasha Denona My Dream palette. I also filmed both the intro and the outro of that Natasha Denona video. So I filmed a whole video since we last spoke. At least I would say an hour and a half of not just living in the base makeup, but like working up a sweat under these lights. And I got some fallout, so I wiped it away and reapplied. When I wiped it away, because it was a balm and it hadn't really set underneath the powder, it just had some powder on it, it wiped away completely, easily, like right down to my skin. And there was a sharp line between where I had wiped it away and the rest of it. But because it's a balm, and this is one of the great benefits of a balm foundation, it was incredibly easy to repair, even though it had powder on it. I just went in with the brush, went in with a little more product, and I was feeling so demoralized by how pale and pink my face is that when I went in, I was like, maybe I should use the other color and mix it together so it'll like tone it down a little bit, tone down the pinkness a little bit. And I put a little bit of the brush. Oh no, this is the other color. I tapped the brush into Fair 2 and I just put a tiny bit there, and it was so orange. Like it really looked like, again, like some kind of color corrector on me. Peachy, dark circles, under eye color corrector. It was just so orange. I thought after putting on this entire color, I thought that maybe there's a chance that I didn't pick the lesser of two evils. But when I tried just a tiny bit of that other one on, it turned out that I think I actually did pick the best option if it was going to be one of the two. I don't think that it is necessarily an extremely orange color. It's just for me. It's very peach, and because I have green undertones, it tends to make it look even more peach. Is that the whole story of what I've done since we last spoke? I also filmed the intro to this video. So I really left this until the very last minute so that I could give the foundation as much time as possible on my skin and also have as many different experiences as possible, i.e. wiping off fallout and repairing it. The repair went seamlessly. That was what I was going to say. It was so easy. It blended right in. The edges melted right in. That has been my experience across the board with repairing balm foundation. And I think that that's a huge mark in the favor of this product. I did not repowder because when I went to wipe it off, where the crumbs of eyeshadow had fallen down, I got a really close look at my cheek and it was just like, it didn't look good. The powdered balm, this Patrick Ta stuff, it didn't look good. It's almost like it had gotten a little bit craggier and more broken apart over time. But then when I went back in with the brush and put a fresh thin layer on my cheeks, I was reminded of how beautiful it can be just as a nice, thin, fresh layer of balmy base product. And I just didn't have the heart to cover it back up with powder after that, because that is this product at its best. And that is my takeaway. That's the final thought. I feel like it looks pretty beautiful when you're not looking for super full coverage, not looking to like completely change the color of your skin like I usually am, because it's usually redder than I want it to be. And so I'm trying to really change the dial, like really move it to another place on the color spectrum. But if that's not you, if you pretty much look how you want to look when you wake up in the morning and you just want your skin to look a little bit more perfected, a little bit smoother, a little bit dewier, a little bit more even toned, but you're not really trying to cover anything up, then I feel like you will be the person who can wear this balm foundation in the way that is to its best advantage, which is to say a nice sheer layer worked into the skin. Of course, there has to be a match for you. And as you can see, I completely struck out when it came to a shade match. My impression looking at the shade range of this foundation is that it does go from quite light to quite dark, but there just isn't very much nuance in the undertones. Like there aren't very many options. For example, it looks like the absolute darkest shade is really red. And as we just found out, the absolute lightest shade is really pink. And you know, the next lightest shade, like the next one down in the stair step, is way darker. So even if this happened to be more neutral and less peach, it would still be too dark for me to use. So it just seems like it's going to be extremely hit or miss when it comes to finding a shade match in this range. Because it's not just that certain undertones aren't represented at certain values, it's that the undertones that they did choose, they leaned really hard into them. So they've given us like a really saturated version of a very distinct undertone at each level of value, meaning like at each lightness, at every place on the spectrum from light to dark. If you do have a perfect match, for example, if you happen to be one of those people who has very pale, icy, cool toned skin, so you're really pale pink. Actually, the foundation product that I've had before that looks like this, the color reference that I have is the lightest shade in the Sephora Best Skin Ever foundation range, which I think is called like 0P or something. If they still carry that, I'll link it just in case you happen to have skin like that and you know about that foundation, if you tried that foundation. This is basically that color. And it looked like this on me as well, like a really, really pale, milky pink. If that's your skin tone and you're always just looking for something that's like light enough and white enough, but really cool, there's a chance that this will be a good match for you. And if that's the case, I think it's absolutely lovely, but I don't like the way that it looked on me powdered. I didn't like the relationship between the balm and the powder. And of course, this was a first impression, so take that with a grain of salt. And, you know, I don't usually love powder on top of balm, so take that with a grain of salt, but that was my experience today as I put this through, not like a rigorous 24 hours of wear or something, but as rigorous a testing as I could give it within the hours that I was wearing it. The other thing is, am I going to come back and tell you more about how it went? Am I? I don't know if I am, because I don't want to wear it because the shade is so abysmal. The match is so abysmal. I think what I will do is I'll mix it with other things, because that's what I was dying to do, like mix it with, you know what I might mix it with? The Purito BB cream, which is too dark for me, but a beautiful like gray color, like greenish gray color, and way too dark. Because this is a really, really light, bright, pinky color. I feel like the Purito BB cream will pull it down to earth just enough for me, but the fact that this is so light will maybe actually counteract how dark that is. So I'll mix it with that. I'll mess around with it a little bit more. There will be some kind of report, some kind of end of the story of our relationship, sometime in the next month. So keep an eye out. Make sure you're subscribble bibbled, as Nisa would say. I am going to take myself away. I have been filming for a long time this afternoon, and dinner is on the horizon. Gotta love dinner. I very much hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I was able to answer some questions you might have had or sate your curiosity about this product if you were having some curiosity about this product. A bit of a miss for me in multiple ways, but I will be following its future career with a little bit of interest. I'm curious to know if they'll expand the shade range, because I think it did hit kind of weird, the shade range. And I'm curious to know how it's going to go for other people, this like balm and a powder together. I will link that Natasha Denona Duping the Vibes video. It'll pop up as I'm fading out. I hope you will click through and watch it if you haven't seen it. But more than that, I hope that you'll take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.